I love looking at the modern Excel formulas, seeing what they can do, stretching the limits a bit. Now, how often have you used CHOOSECOLS? A little bit? A lot? Every day? It's a very tricky one to try and get a handle on in some ways because it can potentially have a very boring thing, choosing columns. But if we combine it with a few other formulas, some tricks and traps, let's go in and create a 12-month perpetual rolling formula in our tables. So what this will give us is our life back. Our monthly updates become very, very simple. CHOOSECOLS is at the core of it. So let's get in there and have a look at how we can use CHOOSECOLS to save us some time. I would like to give you a little gift. I'll give you a spreadsheet that you can download, so that'll help you with getting it up and running in your work too. Okay, so let's get in there, shall we? The task at hand was to create a rolling 12-month report that we could issue to management, executive, or for our own business, keeping track of a number of KPIs, something of that nature, where you can automatically roll it through just showing the last 12 months. Now, let me walk you through what we've got in front of us. So, firstly, to assist just working out column numbers, etc., for the report at hand, I've just simply got a row of numbers indicating the columns of our data, which you can see at the moment ends at June 26, just a little forecasty thing there. And here's a new set of data ready to drop in just to have a look later on. So there's the same column numbers, just counting down in reverse, just to double check a couple of things as I was working on this. So here's the actual table itself. Now, it is called sales results, which encompasses, as we saw, right up to June the 6th at the end. Now, with that table, we've just got simply, in this case, regions and regional revenue, for example. North, south, east, west. That could be anything. It could be a statistic for certain KPIs, a retention, a series of investments, and whatever is important to your particular business. It could be donation data for a not for profit, for example, patient information, statistics. The list is open for this particular example. Now, as we said, see up here in the title, it's using one of the new modern Excel formulas, CHOOSECOLS. Now, CHOOSECOLS has been around quite a while, and from what I can see, a lot of people just provide information on how to use the actual CHOOSECOLS formula itself. But what we're doing today is we're going to create this report that uses CHOOSECOLS, hard to say sometimes, but in combination with a few others, we're going to create a table that is dynamic, a dynamic array of this data. Now, one of the aspects we might introduce later on is that you can choose how many months you wish to display. You can see here I've got 3, 6, 9, and 12, and we can choose to select from that range as an input the number of months that we want to see. So first one we're going to do, of course, is a 12 months rolling data display in a dynamic table. So this shows the period, the last period of last 12 months, assuming we're all through June already. But here also is another that produces the 12 months prior to that, because as you can see from this table, it's going back to 23, and we could choose any period within that range that we'd like to zoom in on. Now, looking at this particular formula, here it is, CHOOSECOLS. We'll have a look at that in a lot more detail in a moment. CHOOSECOLS from the sales results table, this one, and this element at the end is to show all the data. And by that we mean without that all, we wouldn't see the headings for regions and dates. Sorry, all we'd see is the numbers. Here in this first cell, because it is a spilled range, so we need to make sure we've got enough space around that to show our data. And we have CHOOSECOLS with the first element being an array and showing all. Now, all is going to show us these headers for each of the columns that we're choosing. Starting at column number 1, 1 being column number 1, the region heading and its various regions. And then we start to get a bit more complex. For our next column number, we're using the sequence function. Now, the sequence function is just going to choose a sequence of numbers, and we're going to show it as one row with our columns coming from our month selector. And the starting column will be from the sales results array less B16, which is our columns number, minus 1. So less B16, so 12 minus 1, so that's less 11. And that's going to take us through to, let's have a look. You can see there's the 12th, which is August 25. And we go back to July 25. Okay, so whilst it might look a little complex, the idea of this is because we're referencing a column selector. Let me come back. A column selector of B16, which also affects how many columns we choose and start at within our sales results array. Those two factors with the sequence and the CHOOSECOLS allows this to be not only a flexible dynamic array, it allows us to choose how dynamic we want it to be. So let's have a little look at that right now. So choosing the drop down, we're seeing 12. Let's go whole hog, 3. So there it is. It's going from April, May, June to the end. And we haven't had a look at this second one yet, so let's change this back to 12. And it's basically the same formula right across, except we're doubling the number of columns because this is our start minus 1. So that's going to take us to 24 columns in, less 1, starting at the 23rd. So it's a good way to then look at the previous 12-month period, or 9, or 6, or 3-month period. So that's what we're about here with this simple table with whatever stats or rows of data we want to display, but showing the last 12 months and also potentially the previous 12 months, or the same thing about, which will be the previous 9 and the prior 9 months, the previous 6 and the prior 6 months, or the previous 3 and the prior 3 months. So if we go back to 12, you can see ending at June 26 through to July is the 12-month periods, and July prior to that was June again, but this time for 25, all the way back to July, which was the 12 months full prior to that. Now, let's note our last date is June. If I come up to the end of the table and let's add in some new data, this time for July, pretending we're finishing up at July 26. That's now added to the table. You can see that it's incorporated right to the end and expanded and all drawn in. And if you look at our last 2 months in our dynamic table, we've got July, and August now as our first of that 12 and first of the previous period's 12. Okay, so that's the beauty of this table formula, is that it is dynamic enough to incorporate not only a new period as you go along, which is what we want, the next 12, the next 12, the next 12, or we can choose to make that even more dynamic by specifying how many months we want to see. So if 6 months is important to you, if 9 months is important to you, this 12-month rolling analysis will allow you to see where there are discrepancies earlier than looking at things in a normal 12 months at a time look or 6 month at a time look. We're seeing it month by month, ironing out seasonal fluctuations, all of those things that might be discrepancies for a particular month, but we're seeing the 12 and potentially the prior 12 and looking at them together. Now, just looking at a whole swag of numbers is one thing. Taking that to the next level is to look at a dashboard. So let's have a look firstly at the formula in a bit more detail, and then we'll have a look at it applied to a dashboard. So here's the formula with a few instructional arrows and descriptors pointing to all the components. Now let's isolate firstly what we have is the CHOOSECOLS formula, a sequence formula which is feeding into CHOOSECOLS, as is this columns one feeding into the sequence formula. So for those that are familiar with, say, a nested if statement, we're kind of in that territory. So we've got data providing data to data, if it makes sense. Okay, let's stick to the components in smaller chunks. So CHOOSECOLS has these parameters. Firstly, an array. And the array we're using is sales results, which is a data table. Super important because that allows the data to grow when we add in next month, next year, next quarters, whatever sequence you're coming up with. Adding the all component at the end of that tells it to bring in all of the table headings, not just the data itself. So that allows us to see in our extracted table from CHOOSECOLS the headings to make it describable for our dashboard, which we're going to have a look at in a moment. Now, our first column will be column 1. And column 1 in our example has our region headings. So yay, because CHOOSECOLS is just saying, from this array, show me these columns. So column 1 being number 1. Now we get the other columns from our sequence formula. Now, sequence formula, as you can see here, is the number of rows that we want to return firstly. Well, we're only going to have one row of data from our selection here. So 1 represents the number of rows. The next component is the columns, the number of columns to return. Now, that's an optional one, but we're placing it in here because we've got our little selector drop down to say 12, 9, 6, 3 columns of data. So, or months in this case, but they're in the columns, of course. So we can enter a number or we can use the cell location of our drop down or something else. Now, next along is where to start. The first number in the sequence of our data will be derived from the third function, which is columns. Now, columns requires simply an array. Now, the array will be an array, or in this case, it's an array formula. So that is saying, taking our sales results, which is one series of 43 things, less whatever's in B1, let's say for argument's sake 12, less 1. So 12 minus 1 is 11, 43 minus 11 is 32. So 32 is the array formula that gives us our, if we look down here, rows, columns, and starting point. So we're going to have 12 columns of data starting at column 32 of our sales results. Okay, so there's a lot going on here because of the 3 different formulas, but together, when we make this dynamic by having the input cell for B1 here, that's the real crunch kicker that makes this particular formula exceed those ones that other people might present you, which would be match index, and they're kind of very static. This is dynamic. So this is going to give you that rolling 12 months of data that you can analyze every month, as is your job requirement, so that you can present something super duper to your executive, your managers, your clients, the people that are looking to see the results of your analysis. So let's see how you might present this in a dashboard format going forward. And yeah, let's go and have a look at that now, shall we? And here we are in our particular dashboard layout that is a little prettier than the things we looked at prior to looking at the data. But the data page would still be important because that is potentially where you would be updating your data to display here in this dashboard. Let's have a look around, shall we? And firstly, can I say, all I've done to make this look clean and sharp is turn off the grid lines from the View tab. Do not try to color in cells with a color to make the grid lines disappear. Simply turn them off, and then you've got a nice clean look to your dashboard. So up the top here is where we would select, you can see from our drop down, the numbers 12, 9, 6, 3. to represent the number of months that we would like to see in our table. What we've done here is created a small little focus on the min and max numbers, whatever these represent, for each of the regions. So we can see it's a simple little formula for each of the regions. So then we can see also there's a bit of conditional formatting here to show the green for the highest of the maxes and the red for the lowest of the minimums, and the same across the tables. Now you can see with this one we've got 28,000, so 2 cop the red here, which is fine. And just to make things look even fresher, we've got a style chosen for these. I chose heading 1, and that even applies for this line here, heading 1. So we've got the same line thickness going through just to make things look kind of cool. And a chart created across each of these little highlights for mins and maxes, and they just represent some nice visual clues. And I fixed the areas here to just show in each of the scales. The axes show max of 50,000 on each, and I probably should have labeled the same thing for the min, but just a quick little example, that was all. Now let's do what we want to do. We want to update all of this data with one simple action. So we've now received July's figures for 26. So let's go to our data again. I've redone that and bringing them out. Let's just drag them in once more. Yay, check our dashboard. We're looking for July. There it is. That's updated to be one of the highest in the months. This is now July, previous year, and this is all updated. That's all super duper. And that is what a dashboard should do. Automatically update to show you the latest results with minimal effort. Key point, minimal effort. So from our data, which we key here, is that we've used a table. Using a table means that our data updates automatically, so that range of sales results expands to the next column each month. Excellent point. Then the quick explanation of how we created this. Remember, you can pause, take a screenshot, check it out. And that shows you how it's all come together using the CHOOSECOLS sequence and columns formulas to get our dynamic change. Again, the key here is firstly we use the all aspect of the array for CHOOSECOLS. We use the dynamic reference to a cell which has a drop down to choose our number of months, and that also applies here. And when we look at our data, let's change the months and everything updates. Check those charts, and isn't that an impressive thing? You can show your clients, executives, managers, whoever you need to show this data to. Okay, well, I hope you liked learning a little bit about a rolling 12-month analysis that can help you out doing your monthly reports in a huge way using CHOOSECOLS, which gives you a dynamic array rather than a static array that, say, match and find and other techniques create static arrays that will make your life a little harder rather than easier. And this one I hope you'll be able to employ in your own workplace. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please drop a like. And if you'd like to see the next one and be advised, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to let me know current problems that are plaguing you at your workplace, I'm all about creating modern Excel workplace solutions. Please drop a comment and let me know what you'd like to learn next. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.